How are you doing, sir?
I'm good. I'm good. Yeah, doing all right. Doing okay. How about yourself?
Good. I hope you're growing out the hair for Van for season three, I'm hoping for right now.
That's what I'm hoping for. We'll see. We'll see how long I can get away with. Uh, we'll see
But,
what they. Yeah,
but
I don't know what's regulation in the Montana Sheriff's Department.
congrats. I decided to also, I usually dress up for my interviews, but I was like, I feel I need to go a little bit more Montana. So I was like, I'm
I'll
gonna
do it, man. Yeah, I dig it. Very lumberjack. I appreciate it.
exactly. I feel like a brawny commercial. I appreciate that.
Yes, yes, very much. Very, very reminiscent of the Brawny man.
But congratulations, first of all, Ben, and everything. Again, I'm Jeff. I'm doing this for Awards Watch. And I reached out, I spoke with your PR team because really, you do such an enchanting job. Like the word is enchanting. It's such a gentleman, chivalrous thing in 2026. It's refreshing as a fellow male to see this type of like quality gentleman demeanor. So congrats
Mhm.
the way you perform it.
I appreciate that. That means a lot, man. Yeah, yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's interesting. I feel like there's kind of, it's very trendy right now to be cynical and glib and very dark. And that has its own charms and its own sense of humor and there's a lot of wit in that, but there's something really refreshing on the page at least about reading characters who are very straightforward and aren't saccharine, but have an earnestness and there's a kind of forthrightness and an honesty and it was very attractive on the page to me to be able
Glad
to
to-
be like, oh, there's a really clear compass to this guy and like
yeah.
you know kind of just dropping anchor and following like a very simple direction. It's not always easy that. Sometimes it's easier when you've got a bunch of bells and whistles that you can kind of draw on.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah,
yeah.
absolutely. But if I may too, Ben, going a little bit even further back, how would you describe your acting career, efforts, and opportunities prior to landing the Madison role?
That's such an interesting question. It's interesting. Like I'm still pretty green, but like I've been in the game for a while now. Like I show up on set and I'm not the young gun anymore. I'm like, oh, there's a whole generation of people who, yeah, who look up to me and think I'm like a dinosaur. Um, and it's interesting, I kind of like I went to drama school in the UK and had a lot of opportunities. Got very lucky when I left school and had a lot of opportunities over here. I'm in the UK currently right now. Um, when I first left school, that I always kind of had an ambition to work over here, but I never thought it would happen so quickly. And did a string of gigs and then went back to the States and started working over there. And I think, for me, I've always really admired actors who are kind of unrecognizable role to role and who are able to, yeah. And I always thought it was something to be desired to be able to play a wide variety of characters in a wide variety of projects. And I'm very lucky in that I think, especially early on, I was able to do that. I think also at the same time, it can be difficult to like pin you down, and
Sure.
it's hard. It can be, you don't necessarily have a calling card. You don't go, there were a lot of things that, um, roles, some of which I ended up doing, but that originally my agent would put me forward for and they'd be like, "We don't even want to see him because we know he's not right." And I'd be like, "You just got to get me in the room because I no, of course, if they watch Pride, they're not going to think I'm right for this thing. But you got to just let me go in and meet with them." And yeah, I feel very lucky to have been able to kind of bounce around and do as many different things as I've been able to, and yeah, the Madison when it came along, like it's interesting. I had actually tested for another one of Taylor's shows like a year and a half before that didn't end up going my way. But Taylor had reached out and was like, "Hey man, you did really good. Like you're just not right for the part, but like you did good, and we'll find something to work on." Um, and yeah, you just gotta stay the course. I just feel really lucky this year in particular to be able to work with such good writing.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up how you got the role for this show because from the Madison, obviously listening to you right now, Ben, speak, you use such a different speech as Deputy Sheriff Van Davis. How did it take time to maybe get into that character and kind of respect the Montana way and the way that people would actually speak.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think my first reaction when I think like, oh, cowboy or that kind of, deputy sheriff kind of is my first reaction when I read the line, yes, ma'am, is Texas.
Mm.
That's my kind of those are all my associations.
Fair.
And so when I originally read the scripts, in my head I read Cade's character and Van's character as much more kind of, Texas cowboy. Um, and then once I started kind of like speaking the words out loud, running the lines, it became very like there was something really like incongruous there, like wasn't fitting. Um, and I really just had to start at the drawing board, like go back to the drawing board, start from the ground up because I didn't that kind of northern sound, that northwestern sound. It's not something that's like at the tip of my tongue. So but I didn't want to do just some general vague like pull some cowboy accent out of nowhere. Like I wanted it
Sure.
to be it's the fun part about our job is when you're able to get specific and get forensic with that stuff. And so I really just started from scratch. And a big kind of touchstone for me was I don't know if you've seen the Chloe Zhao film The Rider.
Yes, I have.
Yes. So Brady Jandreau in that. He's from South Dakota, but it's similar part of the world. And I started listening to interviews with him. There's one interview that he and Chloe Zhao did with Terry Gross back when they were promoting The Rider that I must have listened to like literally like 100 times. But that, his voice is lighter, it's softer, it's a bit higher pitched.
Mhm.
Um, but his sounds, I was like, that's an anchor that I'm dropping is this guy. Like that's the sound, and also that rhythm and that pace of speaking.
Hmm.
There's something deliberate to it, and there's something, yeah, there's just kind of an honesty and a clarity to it. And then I watched, yeah, and then I just, listened to a lot of cops in Montana speak, and just kind of started gleaning my,
Hey, that's the
building
best
up.
research.
Exactly, exactly, yeah.
I love that. But we now have a full, the Madison season one out on Paramount Plus.
Mhm.
Ever since this has come out, how have you even noticed that the trajectory of your career maybe has been changed and maybe altered for the better ever since, Ben?
Yeah, it feels like it's nice to be in something that's got a lot of eyeballs on it. I've done a few gigs that and shows that I'm really proud of and movies I'm very proud of that maybe didn't get the eyeballs on them we were hoping that they would.
Sure.
And that's just the nature of the beast. Um and so I kind of, when you have experiences that are profoundly creatively enriching, but then at the end of the day might not have a kind of, you might not have a kickback that you'd think on the outside you'd be hoping for.
Sure.
You learn to kind of aggregate or for me, all that stuff, you realize like, oh, that's all kind of out of our control. The only thing you have control over is like what you bring to something, the experience you have, your work ethic. And so it was nice, like going into the Madison, when I read the scripts, when I got the part, I was like, it's a gift of a part. It's a gift of a project. To go to Montana to do this, I was like, dude, if this show never makes it to air, I would do it 10 times over. Like just to kind of go and get to act with this ensemble in this place and say these words and tell this story and so to kind of see at the back end that like it's got so many eyeballs on it and it's all just like icing on the cake. It's all, it's great, but I'm very happy and yeah, it's just nice to kind of to get some eyeballs on it.
I love that. But with your on-set experiences, Ben, and getting the time to understand Van up to this point, how would you best describe your character from his world outlook to the
Mhm.
joys and lingering pain within his life?
Oh man, that's a really interesting question. Van he's someone for whom like being a neighbor, being someone's neighbor really means something. In his community, where he comes from, being someone's neighbor, it's a responsibility, it's a privilege. He's a public servant. He is from a small town and he's a mountain boy and that's where he was born, that's where he's gonna die. Um, and yeah, I think there is a kind of a moral clarity and a moral compass that is he follows, and again, I think it's something that in our um, overstimulated kind of coastal worlds we might look down on or patronize,
Mhm.
but there's an honesty to it that I think is very admirable,
Mhm.
and I admire him as a character. It's nice when you're able to like, you play a part and you're like, oh, I wish I was a little bit more like man in real life. I wish I was a little bit more capable, a little bit more,
Yeah.
straightforward, and a little bit less worried about keeping people happy and more worried about like telling the truth. There's a really wonderful book called The Solace of Open Spaces by Gretel Ehrlich that Christina, our director, I called her up and I was like, hey, I'm like a research nerd, but I was like, is there any like books or movies you think I should watch? And she's like, not really. She's like, oh, but you should read this book if you get a chance. And it was very, very, it proved very insightful.
Hmm.
For this job, but there's a line in it where she says, "Honesty is stronger medicine than sympathy,"
Hmm.
and
I like
I
that.
was just like that. Talk about touchstones. I was like,
Yeah, that
yes,
gets you.
exactly.
I love
Um,
it.
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
curious though, then Ben, too, you get to work alongside the iconic Michelle Pfeiffer on this Paramount Plus series. So can you speak to the talent and the professional nature of having her as a scene partner?
dude. So Michelle, like, it's interesting. I have a handful of scenes with her in season one. Um, Not as many scenes as some of the other cast have. So I didn't get like the full scope of her I mean, scene after scene, what she's bringing. So when I went back and I first watched the first few episodes, I was blown away by Michelle's work. Like, really, there are certain scenes that are, there's scenes you read as an actor and you go like, like, oh shit, that's gonna be a tough day. Like,
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
keep an eye on like what day that is on the schedule, and I mean, first of all, she's the most unassuming, gracious person and leader to have on set. She's a wonderful presence and is totally down to earth
Good.
and wants to work and wants to be there and to bring it. And she just never hits a false note. I think she's phenomenal in this. And there's one scene in particular where, again, even just logistically filming it, the scene in the first episodes where she gets the phone call that there's been a tragedy.
Mhm.
And I think
Yeah,
her work is just astonishing in that scene.
it is.
But even just thinking about that is like, that tests your mettle as an actor because the first 3 pages of that scene are about something completely different. Like, there's no, where that scene starts and where it ends.
Yeah.
And thinking about the rate at which, in order to kind of make it fit in an episode of television, you have to make these leaps organically. And then also the fact that like, and Taylor did this on purpose because it's exposing. It's an
Mhm.
exposed moment. She's a raw nerve.
Yes.
She said it in the daytime in the middle of a crowded restaurant.
Mhm.
That scene easily could have been at their apartment having coffee, two friends, but no, it's in the middle of a brightly lit, crowded restaurant where you've got probably about 80 background artists all around you.
Mhm.
Um, and I just thought like she just was like, yeah,
Yes.
I cannot. And I'm also watching Margot's Got Money Troubles now, and I'm just like, oh,
Like Chameleon can do so
I
much
know,
different.
a million miles away, and I just love her. I think she's wonderful, and I'm so happy for her.
I love that. On the show, though, Michelle Pfeiffer's character says to her eldest daughter, Abby, who plays your new love interest on the Madison, I love what she says here. She goes, and I quote, Abby, if I were you, I would set my hooks pretty deep in that one. They're not making any more men like that, like him. And we talked about this a little bit earlier at the beginning of our chat, but so do you also see the chivalrous gentleman nature of Van, like so many of us have already come to admire, as this new male TV character in 2026?
Oh, I hope so. That would be really nice. I feel like we could use a bit more chivalry and a bit more decency and a bit more. Yeah, I think something about Van that's really cool. There's a moment that I thought was very telling. I think it's my first scene with Abby, one of my first scenes when we meet one another, and
Mhm.
she says, "I'm sorry, like you're not catching me at my best, or you're catching me at, like the worst moment of my life." And I say, I don't meet many people at their best moments. It's okay.
Mhm.
And I do think there's something about, in my kind of incessant watching of like police shows and this and that and interview, but you see it like when you go to the doctor, people whose jobs, it's not his job to judge anyone. It's his job just to help. And I think we could all use a little bit more of that.
I
And again,
agree.
I think the phrase, the word like being neighborly, I feel like it has a bit of like a twee kind of like, Pollyanna
Yeah.
um, association, but it's actually a really important thing. And the times in my lives where people have kind of gone out of their way to go, oh, I'm going to help you not because it's convenient, but because it's my duty because I'm a human being and so are you, and
Yeah.
I see that you need it. Like I
We
feel like
we
we
could all
all need
take
to.
advice from Van's mindset and
I
I
think so. I think so. Yeah, I think if band becomes a bit of a, yeah, a bit of a benchmark for people, I don't think that's a bad thing.
no, not at all. But can you also, Ben, speak to the great lengths and detail that go into a Taylor Sheridan production like yours on the Madison?
Mhm. Yeah, yeah, of course. I mean, there's no expense spared when it comes to creating the world of fleshing out this world in the Madison Valley. I think he knows this stuff like the back of his hand. He's writing this is his world. Every little one of the things I'm excited about. I had a lot of fly fishing lessons and a lot of like
Nice.
riverboat lessons, and they I remember the outfitter, the guide who was like training me, teaching me to fly fish, teaching me to row the drift boat. Um, I would show him the scripts and I would ask him about all of the, every line of dialogue about fly fishing. And
Mm.
he was just at each beat, he was like, "Oh, this guy is either a fly fisherman or he had a fly fisherman with him when he wrote it." And it just sometimes in good storytelling, you don't need to understand what's being said. You just need to understand what it means to the people saying it.
Mhm.
And I can't tell you how many legal shows I've watched where I couldn't tell you I don't have the first idea what the hell they're talking about, but I know it's extremely important.
Yeah.
And there are moments where Kurt and Matthew are just in the middle of this fraternal banter back and forth. And even me having spent all the time studying it, I'm like, I don't quite know what they're talking about, but I know how I understand in a snapshot what the relationship is here, what the circumstances are here, what's at stake for these brothers having this short window of stolen time to get to spend together. Um, and, you know, uh, I'm glad that Taylor has the sway and put his trust in Christina to be able to give the nature and the setting the space to breathe, and be able to hold those moments of silence and stillness, particularly between Matthew and Kurt, which I found, I have an older brother, and like that stuff just always gets me.
Same.
Um, and I think that all that stuff is in the details, and so I'm very grateful that Paramount um, put forth the resources for us to really fill out that world.
Glad to hear that. Last two questions for you, Ben. Season two, correct me if I'm wrong, is already filmed,
Yes.
and season three has been announced. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Yeah, I'm stoked. I'm really excited.
Nice. So, without spoiling, of course, what aspects and layers of Van are you most excited for fans to see next as this Madison story continues to unfold?
Oh wow. Um, I mean, I think there's a really beautiful and kind of classical um, star-crossed setup between Van and Abby, and I think these two people from such disparate worlds, it's a real like classically romantic setup, and not those confines, that structure to play in is just so rich and it's so fun, and Beau is such a great scene partner, and i'm I'm excited for, we had such a great time filming season two, and I'm excited for an audience to be able to see where that journey leads, to be able to see what shakes out with this family. And I'm very like wary of what I can and can't say, but
Sure.
um
Fair.
but seeing how the first season came together, I think people are going to be really thrilled and excited to see how season two picks up and carries on.
I love it. But I mean, I love the Van and Abby chemistry. We all like from the get-go, we're like, oh my God, what is this
Oh,
happening here?
thanks, man. Thank you. Yeah, it feels like such a beautiful, kind of specifically drawn dynamic. And these two people who you had mentioned this before in a previous question that I think I may have overlooked, but just, these are two people um, who have a lot of hurt and who have lived through a lot of difficulty and who, um, aren't on, yeah, they haven't been dealt at this stage the best hand. Um, and those are the love stories that are so interesting to me, are these two people who kind of, a
Agreed.
little bit broken, a little bit
Like you said
botched.
too, star-crossed. They feel like they can't be together, yet they may
Yeah,
try, and I hope they do.
exactly. Yes, exactly. And yeah, I just think it's like a Bruce Springsteen song. I just think it's a really beautiful, beautifully drawn dynamic and beautifully drawn relationship there.
I love that. My last question for you, Ben, is the signature question I love to ask actors that play these deep roles, as you do as Ben on the as Van on the Madison. Excuse me. So, if you, Ben, could speak
Mm.
to Van after embodying him over season one of the Madison, could give him advice, a warning, or a comforting message, what would you say to him if only you could?
Give him some advice,
Yes.
warning or comforting message. Oh man.
From seeing his story, knowing who he is from the outside in.
I would say, he has this moment in season one where he says, like, I'm never gonna go to a city bigger than Billings. Like, I'm never gonna, I mean, probably just like off the top of my head, I'd probably, as a city boy,
Get
I'd
on a
probably
flight, dude.
give it a chance, bro. Like, give it a chance. Like, send the kids to their grandparents and like go for a week. You don't have to move there, but
Yeah.
like, you can maybe make this work.
Yeah. Get this chip off your shoulder and go.
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that. Well, Ben, congrats again. I'm Jeff. I look forward to
Thank you.
sharing this at Awards Watch. Congrats on everything here. I can't wait for season two.
Thank you, Jeff.
Obviously, season three, we're excited to see you film, but congrats, first of all, on season one. Great performance.
I really appreciate that, Jeff. Thanks for taking the time, man. I appreciate it.